Hello again. We're ready for the next session here today in the iGaming Next Power Hour. And with me right now, I have Dylan Slaney of SG Digital. How are you doing, Dylan?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. How's things?
Very, very well, thank you. We are pushing on with on the Power today with some really interesting sessions. And I think for me, this session is something I've been looking forward to actually now. Dylan, obviously, you have a lot of history with iGaming Next. You were one of the first presenters in our very, very first conference last year. And I've seen you, from a distance during the presentation. So it's really nice to finally be able to talk to you here today on the Power Hour.
Yeah, likewise. Good to see you. Be nice to be sharing a beer in person, but maybe we'll have to wait a few more months until we can do that.
Yeah, I know. A couple of months we'll do it. For now, we'll do a virtual cheers or something.
Exactly.
Brilliant. So the topic of today is basically how Scientific Games' digital open platform strategy is influenced by giants like Xbox and PlayStation, and what this will mean for the iGaming industry. Now, this is an interesting topic for me because I like to ponder on the future and kind of outside the box perspective and stuff like that. And that's a little bit what I was planning for this discussion today, Dylan. So, but first of all, you're the SVP of Casino in SVP Digital. Can you just talk a little bit more of what you do for SVP Digital and what your ideas are in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been with SG Digital for 3 years. So just had my third birthday in October, and it's been a great learning experience for me being new to the industry. So I spent like 7-8 years in a data science company prior to moving over into this brilliant industry. And at SG Digital, I run the iGaming platform and iLottery side of our business. So anything that's non-sports, I like to deem it as, and the casino side obviously is a huge part of that, and that encompasses the platform, the commercial side, the operational side, the content side, our partner network as well. So anything through from product development through to engineering, through to operations, through to content getting out. So anything good or bad, operators can come and speak to me and say thank you, or tell me we need to improve. So there we go.
Exactly. More fun when they say thank you.
Exactly.
Yeah. I want to remind everyone who's watching right now as well that we are live right now. So if anyone has any questions or comments, I will make sure to grill Dylan with this. So no pressure on you, Dylan, but just so you're aware of that as well. I wanted to start the conversation today just on the topic itself of the conversation, just to bring a little bit more nuance here. Okay, so I want to ask you, what parallels can you draw to Xbox and PlayStation with your vision of the SG Digital open platform? And can you maybe also just talk a little bit what the open platform is as well for the listeners who are not aware of that?
So. Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. Look, I mean, first and foremost, they are entertainment brands and products that serve players through essentially the provision of engaging content and games. Okay, and I just look at them that they're in the same master vertical as we are, right, which is the broader entertainment industry. So whilst we sit and our products serve the gambling and gaming industry, I always try to think and try and look a little bit broader about where players and where our end customers are spending time. And for me, we are part of that entertainment industry, and we're providing services in the broader entertainment space. And from my perspective, the open gaming platform or open gaming ecosystem mirrors what both Xbox and PlayStation set out to achieve. Okay, it's a platform service that connects players to content. So operators choose our platform, and through that get access to a variety of content that allow their players to experience different types of content and games. But we also produce content. So we're a big producer of proprietary content, exactly the same way the likes of Xbox and PlayStation produce their own content. But we also allow providers to connect into our platform, and we also help providers to produce content. So again, no different to the way that Xbox and PlayStation do with the likes of Activision and EA Sports. So, we see ourselves as twofold. One, we're a platform service, and two, we're a content business, and that has two parts to it. Right? One, we produce our own content, and one, we allow content to flow onto our platform. All designed, to allow players to access, the best content, to have the best experiences, and for players to be able to play, a plethora of content through one integration onto our platform. And whilst we might not have the same brand resonance as an Xbox and a PlayStation, that's sort of like the theory by which we're setting out the open gaming ecosystem.
Yeah, it's so interesting what you're mentioning in regards to being an entertainment-led industry, because this just before in the previous conversation with Lisbeth Oost of Aspire Global, she talked about sustainability of the industry and how the industry needs to move away from being compared to the likes of like alcohol or tobacco type industries to being compared to the Netflix, to the Xbox, the PlayStation, and so forth. Because in the end of the day, if we look at the direct competitors of the industry, you could make an argument, right, that we are fighting for leisure time.
Absolutely.
And obviously, for me as a consumer, if I go home after work today, I will choose: will I watch Netflix? Will I, play at an online casino and so forth? And that is where we need to be focused as an industry, right? Moving towards that direction. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it is all about where consumers, where players, as we call them, spending time in the broader sort of like entertainment sphere, and whether that's in physical outlets or whether that's in on digital devices. For me, we need to understand where consumers are, and Netflix are one of those. Great examples of companies that where players and where players that play slot games also consume entertainment content from Netflix and Amazon Prime. And what these companies have all got in common, and when we were talking about Xbox and PlayStation before, is that they blend platform services with content provision, right? All centered around, for me, providing engaging experiences for their customers and all their players. So Netflix, again, right, a great model where they are a platform service. They produce their own content. They also allow content that other people produce to be distributed on their network, and they just happen to have evolved into one of the premium producers of entertainment content that services the needs of lots of different audiences and customers around the world.
Yeah. And on that note, I mean, Netflix, obviously, massive organization now, billion dollar company working with massive budgets. How to take even more bigger piece of the cake of their consumers' leisure time, right? And then here we are in the iGaming industry, with a lot lesser budgets, so to say, to compete with the likes of Netflix. But so, like, how does the iGaming industry make sure that we don't fall behind these giants that are trying to kind of take market share in a way of the iGaming industry in the sense of the consumer's time?
Yeah, no, great question. I mean, look, it's hard, isn't it, to look at that company and go, well, how do we compete, right, with the amount of spend and dollars that they spend, internally on technology provision, on building new content, and then externally on kind of like marketing, things like that. But I think it's simple, because we distill down what the brilliance of what they and others like Amazon Prime, Xbox, and PlayStation actually do. And for me, it's a real focus on player experience and innovation. Okay, so all those companies have a real kind of like innate DNA built in, where they try to make every moment matter for players or for people that are consuming content or playing games on their platform. And for us, right, we need to make every spin matter, every moment matter in our in our games, and to provide the best experience that we can for our players. And if we can make every experience unique so that they choose our industry and play responsibly, then I think we can compete. We shouldn't look at Netflix, I don't think, as a threat, but as a company that we can learn, from, and look at how they create, or try to, create and constantly innovate around trying to have a frictionless experience, no matter what you're trying to consume at what time of day. How they personalize experiences so that the experience that you have on Netflix will be derived from the content that you like and the content that you want to watch that might be very, very different from mine. How they curate content for different audiences, right? How they've used data and insight to look at all the sort of like the signals and cues that are coming from what consumers are watching, and creating different content to match the needs and wants of audiences. All that, for me, right, we can learn from, and we shouldn't see them as a threat. Yes, I see them as competition for consumer airtime, but there's lots of great things that they're doing that I think we can learn from in our industry to make moments matter for players, and to make every experience that we create for players, even more rewarding and even more engaging.
Yeah, very, very good points in general, I think, and maybe seeing Netflix as an organization to work hand in hand with, in a way where they are helping the iGaming industry and other industries to kind of bring people more into a digital environment, which can then spill over, so to say, to the iGaming industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, Pierre, I think that they're pushing the boundaries. Okay, so even if you look at the experience of their app, and what we can learn from that, and what operators can learn about, bringing some of those experiences into iGaming. They're digital first all the way through their business, right? But started as a physical distribution DVD house, right? Where where they were sending DVDs through the essentially through the post, but have now become really digital and truly mobile first. And I think it's those sort of like signals and cues that we can learn from, to bring into our industry, to learn from them, and to see where and how they innovate, and to look at how we can construct better experiences for our players tomorrow than we have today.
Yeah, and to avoid the iGaming industry to become the blockbuster of our experience, to say, right? Which is staying on top of the trends is the pivotal. Now we talk about Netflix, but tomorrow it might be someone else that we are learning from that have completely changed the game. And not falling behind is the key here, right?
100%. And there was at that time there were lots of DVD places that you could go to rent or buy DVDs that now don't exist. And look at that transformation of the Netflix business model from what it was to what it is now, and how they've evolved. And I think it's those learnings that I want to keep kind of like fresh within our industry, so that we stay relevant, and that we can keep innovating and keep providing better experiences for players every time that we produce a game, and never lose sight of that we need to innovate, and never lose sight that we need to keep on moving forward, because somebody's out there, right, waiting to create the next new slot game.
Yeah, exactly. We have a comment here from Ian Sims, who is asking, he's saying, "Hey Dylan, does Scientific Games' popular jackpot party social casino fit into this strategy that you're talking about?"
Yeah, I mean, our social business is a vertical inside Scientific Games. So yes, absolutely, right. We share innovation across the verticals in Scientific Games. We learn a lot from our social business in terms of the experiences that they have, essentially being a B2C provider. Whereas the majority of what we do sits on the B2B side. So absolutely, there's always room for improvement across our portfolio in terms of how we collaborate. And yes, there's some great innovation that the social team have done and are doing to really push boundaries forward, again, to keep themselves relevant in a very highly competitive marketplace.
Yeah, it's interesting. And on that note, I mean, on the social side of things, it feels like something that the industry hasn't figured out yet, right? how to open up the operators to be more social in the way you see other industries are doing, and the social aspect of gaming, as in computer gaming, for example, is very, very important, right, for the survival of that industry. And do you feel that is there something that the industry still has to figure out on that note? I think generally I have this feeling that a lot of operators are scared of letting the players communicate with each other. Maybe there will be a lot of negativity happening or something like that. I don't know. How do you see the social aspect of gambling? Do you agree as well that it's kind of an area that hasn't been explored enough yet, or do you see the future in that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think in some verticals. Okay, so I think in places like and bingo and poker, it's part of the part of the product mix already, right? So most players that are playing bingo have access to like chat facilities. Same from a poker point of view. It's not really sort of like transferred yet into pure play slots. I know that there's been lots of conversations. We've tried some social aspects to some of our games with some innovation in places like Jackpot Wars to kind of like bring that community kind of like aspect into games. But I don't think the sort of like the traditional sort of like chat side has really sort of like taken off yet. Although when you look at what's happening on on places like streamers and with Twitch and channels like that, there is definitely an appetite, right? That players want to communicate and talk to each other, want to watch and experience big wins. And I think that community's done a fantastic job to really, I think, to bring up the sort of like the level of social interaction within slots, but it's not transferred really into sort of like the mainstream of operators having sort of like chat functionality around slot games at the moment, right? It takes a lot of moderation as well, because you want to be able to do it responsibly. You want to be able to do it in a safe and secure way. But it is there within our industry, right? And it does exist, and it's something that I know that is very, very prevalent within like the bingo and poker space, but not really yet translated into mainstream slots. Yeah,
true. And then maybe the chat is one way to say social, but you're mentioning the Jackpot Wars as an example is a different way, right? Where you play in a tournament format, I believe,
exactly,
against each other and things like that. Yeah. Dylan, 20 minutes is not enough for this conversation, but that is the limit of today. And it'd be really interesting to follow up on this actually at some point, because I have a feeling we can go on a lot longer than this. But I want to ask you a last question here as well. We talked a lot about what we can learn from Netflix, what we can learn from Xbox, what we can learn from PlayStation. But what can Netflix learn from the iGaming industry?
Great question. I think I think lots, right? Because there's lots of brilliant innovation that we do within our industry. I think when you look at the different business models that sort of like exist, whereas Netflix can produce one piece of content, put some language packs around it, and probably send it out globally. I'd love us to be in that same space, right? We have multiple different regulations and lots of different complexity that we have to go through to get content out globally, different to Netflix. So I think on things like that, there's lots that they can learn from us in the complexity of our industry, right? And how we still, despite that, manage to curate and create brilliant experiences for players, that players come back to this industry, play responsibly, and love to play the content that we and other brilliant providers in this industry are producing. So it's that, right? If they want to have a little chat about regulatory complexion, come over into the iGaming industry, and we'll have a chat with you about it. But yeah, lots of two-way comms that can go on between the two businesses, I'm sure. Yeah, that's for sure. What a brilliant way to end the conversation today. I see that there's another question from Ian here, but unfortunately we won't have time to bring it up, but thanks for participating. Dylan, this has been really nice. I would love to follow up with another conversation at some point when you have time, but for now, thank you so much for today. Is there anything you'd like to add as a closing? No, all good, mate. Just great to see you guys as always, and take care, and look forward to seeing you soon.